Right, we're back. I'm going to do a video today that I've not really been wanting to do. I've been putting it off and off, but I think the time is right. It is time to consider the possibility that, shock horror, Celtic don't win the league title this season. Now, I know we've won 9 in a row. We've known dominance. You know, there's people about to start secondary school in a year that their whole lifetime has just been Celtic dominance, but it's going to come to an end at some stage. It may well be this year. God, it's shaping up that way at the moment. That's not to say that I've thrown in the towel yet. I still think there's some sort of opportunity. Until it's mathematically impossible, if it gets to that stage, I will always believe that Celtic can win the league. But anyway, I'm going to do this video today. If our rivals across the city manage to stop us winning the league, I'm going to ponder what will happen at Celtic, and I've split it into 4 separate sections. So I'll tell you about them right after this intro. But before I move on to the first of these 4 sections, my usual shout out, if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please give it a go. We're just motoring, but there's no time to stop. We just need to keep going. If you're watching this, and I believe it's still about 3/4 of our views are from non-subscribers, if you're one of those people who are watching this video, you just realise right now as I'm speaking that you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please put that right now. Pause the video, click subscribe. It would be massively appreciated by me, my bosses, everyone else. Give it a go. Right, topic 1, and it's the players. This is the one that's probably least dependent on what happens this season, and the reason I say that is that we are in line for a summer like no other this year. And it's ironic I say that because it's a club like no other that maybe the banners that are around the stadium next year, but I'll come on to that later on when I talk about the fans. Anyway, there's going to be a huge turnover in players this summer regardless of what happens in terms of the league title and whether it goes to Celtic Park or Ibrox. You look at players that are going to leave this summer. Odsonne Edouard will almost certainly be away. I think Christopher Ajer will probably go as well. Olivier Ntcham will go, I would guess. Scott Brown will probably retire if we don't win the league, or even more so if we do win the league. He will retire. I believe his contract's up at the end of the season. Diego Laxalt, Mohamed El Yunusi, the 2 kind of prominent loan signings we've made this season, will probably return back to their parent clubs, and if things really go off kilter in the second half of the season, they probably almost certainly won't be seen in green and white hoops again, you know, past May. So that's 6 pretty key players, certainly 5 first team starters that we're going to be losing, I think, in the summer. And added to that, the disappointing thing is that I don't know if we'll generate a hell of a lot of cash from those players. Obviously, Scott Brown, we wouldn't get anything. Laxalt and El Yunusi aren't our players to sell. Edouard, given that his contract's up in 2022, would we get 20 million for him? Is that pushing it? Christopher Ajer, would we get 15 for him? Is that pushing it? If his contract's up a year later, and Ntcham, would we get 8 or 9 million for Ntcham? So you may not even be looking at a lot of money for 3 of our most saleable assets, but I guess that's just where it is. That's all the doom and gloom. The positive is that Celtic will still be there. You'll have a team to support. New players will come in, but added to that, on top of the probably 6, 7 or 8 new signings that we will make next summer, regardless of what happens, you'll also still have a core there of players that have been at the club for a few years, several years in some circumstances, and can still keep going. I'm talking James Forrest, Callum McGregor will still be there, I think. Jeremy Frimpong should hopefully be there. He's one that can really go for the future, obviously. Same can be said about Mikey Johnson. You know, David Turnbull, I think, is a real good signing that we probably won't see the best of until the years to come, as much as I think he should be starting at the moment. So, you know, there's positives and negatives there. You could argue that how can we get any worse than what we've been over the last couple of months? Ajer, Edouard and Ntcham, Brown have been pretty poor this season, so would we really miss them? This one's a bit more straightforward. If we don't win the league, then I think it's pretty safe to say that Neil Lennon won't be our manager into next season. Now, I know you're shouting at your phone or laptop or computer, whatever you're watching this on, saying, have you met the Celtic board? They just won't sack Lennon whatever happens. I can tell you right now that if we don't win the league this season, Neil Lennon will not be our manager next season. But the question is, who would be our manager? What kind of person would they go for? There's been so much made at the moment about the need to get in someone like Gordon Strachan or Martin O'Neill, someone who knows the club and could get an immediate tune out of the players. If we lose the league next season, you could argue in many ways the pressure is off a little bit and you can get a more long-term appointment in. Now, I'm going to chuck a few names out. Again, please don't scream at the laptop or send me abuse on Twitter, but John Kennedy, would he be an option that the board would look at? I wouldn't personally, but would the board look at John Kennedy as a long-term replacement for Neil Lennon? Jack Ross at Hibs would be another one I think would come into their minds. He's got that kind of track record. And if the pressure of 10 in a row was no longer there, you wonder if that's a manager who could do well at Celtic. Sean Maloney, would he be a shout? Another guy who knows the club, knows the city, which is obviously a stipulation with this board. And don't worry, we are going to come on to the board's future in a wee minute. Or the final one that I thought about was Henrik Larsson. Now, I know he's currently in a job at Barcelona. They are struggling badly under Ronald Koeman this season. He isn't going to be in a job for much longer, and I just wonder if Henrik Larsson could be the kind of guy the board would look to bring in, and that typical move that they often make to try and get the fans back to Celtic Park, because it's going to be difficult for them if we do throw away the league like it looks to be happening this season. Would Henrik Larsson be an option to come in and galvanise the club? I don't think he has a particularly amazing managerial record as it is, so I'm not sure I'd be massively for that. Right, the terms of the board that have come under so much criticism from the support, and rightly so, over the last weeks and months. Peter Lawwell is the main man who the majority of the support's ire is being directed at, and there's been various rumours on social media that Peter Lawwell isn't going to be around next season. There's been chat that he will announce that he's leaving the club at the end of the season at Monday's AGM, which, by the way, they're not taking questions from the Celtic support on. Just seems another massive own goal from the board. But Peter Lawwell, is he destined to leave the club? I would argue that the wheels have been set in motion now with the way he's acted and the reaction from the support. They may be the ones in power at the moment, but when you see the amount of supporters, and it's now, in the 90s in terms of percentage that are against this board, want them sacked, then it's only going to go one way, in my opinion. If Lawwell is leaving at the end of the season, that would explain the complete disregard he's had for the Celtic support this season. Just seeming not to care at all, sending daft statements out criticising fans, sending other statements out that may as well just be a middle finger to the Celtic support. And yeah, that's the way I think things are going to play out. In terms of a longer term future for the club, the Celtic Trust, who are doing a lot of good work at the moment, who have signed up a lot of new people, or new people have signed up to them over the last 10 days or so when they're feeling so powerless about what they can do at the club. That is an avenue you can go down. I'm going to try and get someone on from the Celtic Trust on the channel to tell us all about the work that they do, what they've done in the past, and what they can do going forward, and what you, the Celtic fan, can contribute. I've signed up to them. I'm paying them X amount a month, and I think that is the way that Celtic are going to go in the future. I'm not saying that Celtic are ever going to be fan-owned, but I think there's going to be a greater percentage of the club is owned by the Celtic Trust, aka the supporters. So that's the long-term vision I've got for the club and the boardroom. The short-term one is that I don't think Peter Lawwell is going to be here for much longer, even if he doesn't announce his resignation himself. Now, the most complex issue by far, and it kind of boils down to one very simple question that kind of sums up the whole feeling around the club. How many season tickets will Celtic shift next year if we don't win the league this season? This season, we shifted, I think, just upwards of 50,000. It was a record number, truly remarkable support, given that There were absolutely no guarantees of anyone seeing any matches this season, and obviously we're going to be into the new year and not one Celtic fan will have seen a match at Celtic Park all season. So that sums up the Celtic support. But next season, if we sold 50 this season, would we sell 30 next season? Would we sell half of it? 25? I kind of think like 25 may be the ballpark of how many Celtic fans would buy season tickets next year. There's a few reasons for that. Now, there's a hardcore of Celtic support, the dialer fans, as I call them, or I like to refer to them as, the fans who were there in the Ronnie Deila days, and a lot of it wasn't pretty during the Ronnie Deila days. There were league games on Saturday afternoons with 35,000 fans at them. Yes, that's when Rangers were out of the league, but I think the feeling or the ill feeling towards the Celtic support at the moment would transcend that next year, and you could get similar kind of crowds to the Deila days, even though Rangers are in the league. Would Celtic, the board, look to get more fans in the door by announcing a Brendan Rodgers-like appointment? Possibly. Would that even wash anymore? If 10 in a row is no longer there, would Celtic fans even be swayed by a big appointment anymore? We know football fans are fickle, but Celtic fans in general, I think, are really intelligent, and we wouldn't want to be cowing down to the board. Just seem to be, following them the minute they bring in some sort of good appointment after all the bad stuff they've done this season. But away from the hardcore season ticket holders, there are a lot of other Celtic fans, probably around about 50%, who will come in cycles. And given that the last 4 seasons especially have been so intense, when you think about how intense they've been, the big matches, the fallout from big games, and obviously everything that's happened this season, you wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people just saying, putting their hands up and just saying, I'm going to give it a miss this season and the next season. I'm going to take a wee break from it. Now, I know there's a whole COVID element, the fact that so many fans have taken a break from going to games this season. Obviously, it's been an enforced break. It's not been out of choice. But I wonder if that could impact people next season, and they may just want to get back to Celtic, not really caring who's in charge at the club, not caring about the team, the manager. They just want going back to football on a Saturday, 3 p.m, back in their lives. But there's also the flip side that as much as a vaccine is on the way, and thank God for that, life isn't going to return to complete normality next year. From what I understand, face masks are still going to be a key part of it. Social distancing to some sort of extent is still going to be a thing in 2021, all of 2021, probably going into 2022 as well. Does that mean that Celtic can get 60,000 fans back into Celtic Park, even with a vaccine in place? I'm not so sure that is as much of a formality as some people believe. And if that is the case, would any Celtic fan pay full whack for a season ticket next year, given everything that's happened this year with the board, the team, knowing that they're not going to get to see every single game they pay for next season? I'm hesitant to say that would be the case, but I'm just in this video looking to the future to see what could happen. So those are all factors to consider. But if Celtic do lose the league this season, there is not a chance that we're going to be selling out Celtic Park for any game, probably other than the derbies next season. That's a scary thought, but again, I'll finish on the positive. As bad as all this stuff seems at the moment, there will still be a Celtic there. There will still be a Celtic that plays at Celtic Park on a Saturday afternoon, and there will still be people who go and watch them. There'll still be tens of thousands of people who go and watch them. If the unthinkable does happen and we lose the league, we're going to get a new manager in, we're going to have a raft of new players in, we're going to have some of the current players still there, and there'll still be loads to get excited about. Even if we finish second, we'll still go into the Champions League, albeit into the non-Champions route, where we can play some of the bigger teams from the larger countries just to get into the group stage. But Celtic will still be there, and I can't emphasise that enough. It seems like we're at the end of days at the moment, but we're still going to have Celtic there. We're still going to have a team that plays with a new manager, new players. We may well have a new board. We may have further inroads made by the Celtic Trust. So there is a positive future ahead, as bleak as it seems right now. And obviously 67 Hail Hail will still be there as well. That's another major positive. And on that topic, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and tell a pal about us. We'll speak to you tomorrow.